be discussing is SaaS security, how to democratize and disrupt a managed service. But before we kick off into it, Javid, please could you let the audience know a little bit about yourself, if that's okay?
Sure. Thank you for having me. So I'm Javid. I'm currently co-founder and CTO for CloudGuard. Been in the industry for over sort of 20 odd years, which is very long time. Started off my journey in sort of the cloud and infrastructure world, and then having founded a few business, and then evolved into enterprises and all sorts of amazing stuff. Saw lots of gaps in the market when it comes to cyber. As you know, cloud and infrastructure is quite well, you have to secure by design, right? Whenever you do any cloud projects, any infrastructure design, cybersecurity is kind of underpinned. It's a framework, it's a pillar that you always have to consider. And throughout my journey, I noticed that cybersecurity it's far too complex. The market is offering far too many solutions, and traditional ways of doing and offering cyber services just seemed very legacy and archaic, especially as we evolved and matured in sort of tech. So myself and my co-founder Matt, who we've known each other for over a decade, and we've done lots of businesses together, equally saw the challenge and the pain points. And rewind 5 years ago, that's when the idea of CloudGuard kind of got accepted in this idea of we need to offer a service that is affordable, that allows pretty much anybody to subscribe to it, but offer enterprise grade cyber protection. So using a platform or a service that almost is just by nature of the way we deliver it, we're able to make it affordable because we are leveraging likes of automation and now AI. We can pass those costs down. And my personal ambition, my personal goal is to democratize cybersecurity so that it's affordable for everybody. Small, medium-sized businesses should absolutely be receiving enterprise-grade protection and shouldn't have to think about per node, per licensing pricing, the scale, and then the increased costs as cyber protection evolves. How can we disrupt that a bit and offer proactive services, again using this sort of automation ethos?
Nice. Okay, perfect. So let's kick into it then, Javid. So obviously, I just wanted to pick up there exactly what you said there about, okay, what you want to do is actually democratize the service that you guys do. Now, how do you actually go about doing that? Because I'm sure that you're not the first person to think, how can we do this? But you're actually doing it. So tell me, what's the secret? How are you guys doing it?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for us is when we first formed the business, we spent 2 years in R&D, right? We didn't actually onboard any customers at that stage because we really wanted to develop the automation and making sure that we consider everything from onboarding a customer all the way to service. And we spent a lot of time around how do we deploy a platform and how do we make it seamless as part of that onboarding experience. But more importantly, how do we proactively hunt for threats, and then how do we remediate using automation and AI where possible. So the way we've achieved that, and the way we've started our journey, is that we've looked at the ecosystem, and Microsoft Sentinel and the entire Microsoft stack for us was a winner 5 years ago. We found that when they released it in general release, it was going to be game changing at the time. And the reason why is because a lot of the products that were competitors then, Logarithm, Sumo Logic, Darktrace maybe at the time, all of these stacks, as incredible as they are, they're still quite pricey, right? Splunk included, right? So the per user, per node, the idea that you then have to consider ingestion, the data comes out of the customer's tenant and into their platforms and their hosting providers, whether it's AWS or their own private. Sentinel was game changing because it meant that you could leverage an Azure-based service. It gets deployed in the customer's tenant, and you pay for what you use. And all of a sudden, you've got you have access to all the orchestration and automation layer that you typically would have access to if you were to deploy any Azure service. You have access to that equally because it is treated as an Azure service. So we double down on this idea that let's leverage Sentinel, Microsoft Sentinel, and let's start building automation and our capability around that. That's how the business was formed. So the way we've kind of identified and kind of resolved the democratization is this idea that if we are onboarded, we're able to, in one click, deploy Sentinel into a customer's tenant with all of the connectors that's common across most of the customer base, all baked into that automation. So, within less than an hour, a customer has access to pretty much Sentinel with all these base level connectors, with all the rule logic configured, all predefined, and that's all done in a box, and that's all deployed as part of our sort of engagement. What we then do is that we work with the customer to then start thinking about what additional data can we then ingest in. Now, Microsoft has an amazing library. They call it the Content Hub, with all of the additional connectors that one could use. But sometimes those connectors, as much as it's a very vast connector array, that might need some tweaking. It might need some custom optimization. We've always got the customer's price and costs in mind, so we want to cost optimize the data ingestion process. Maybe we might need to rebuild that architecture for that particular connector, and we've done that. So what we've got is our array of additional custom connectors outside of that base level connector pack I mentioned. So we're able to marry up with what connectors a customer needs, and if we have a connector that isn't listed, we will build it with them. So once we've got this array of custom connector logic, we will then roll this out as additional connectors to ingest that data. And again, seamlessly done in a very, very short time frame. And the idea here is that within a few days, our customers get a live service. And then as we then ingest more data, we just incrementally increase that coverage, because we're onboarding and turning on more data connectors. Where our real sort of secret sauce and our magic comes is what happens when that connector ingests the event or ingests the data, triggers a rule, and then creates an event or creates an alert. What then do you do? And most platforms, as I mentioned, like the Splunks, the Darktraces, the Sumo Logic, some of them have some operational integration embedded, but a lot of them are just data that centralizes everything, and it's up to you as a customer to then do something with it. Yep. So if it's 4 a.m. on a Sunday, yes, you've got all of your single pane of glass, it's all there, you can see the data, but you're in bed, you're sleeping, what do you do? And a lot of our automation then kicks in here. So when we have an event, we have a series of automation and AI workflows that enriches, that investigates, and then remediates pretty much those threats based on our own custom proprietary logic. And that whole framework of deploying seamlessly, onboarding those custom connectors, and then having this automation and AI agents that run 24/7 is the way we've democratized that. So we can then basically run a seamless operation. Not to say that our entire stack is automated. We then have access to a 24/7 SOC team, which is human intelligence, but they work in uniform with the machine intelligence. And the idea here, and our KPI that we're really trying to measure, is we want to ensure that 90% of events are automated. That last 10%, which is critical events that needs human intelligence, human analysis and investigation, and then that remediation with the customer, is then what we rely on. And that for me is really important, because we're getting rid of the noise, we're getting rid of all the rubbish, we're getting rid of all the false positives potentially. We are now focusing the human work on the 10%, which means I don't need a large team. My SOC team is not huge, and I don't think I'll ever need a large team, because automation and AI does all of the heavy lifting for us. So that whole framework and that whole idea I just mentioned is how we've gone about democratizing sort of cybersecurity and kind of made it a bit more of a commodity-based service, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, no, perfect. And it sounds really, really cool about what you guys do at Cloud Guard. Thanks for explaining that. And my question to you is, when it comes to AI, a lot of AI automation, a lot of the challenges I'm seeing when I'm speaking to, early stage vendors or MSSPs or whatever it might be, when you bring AI into it, is that there's not a lot of case studies in which, when you're speaking to your customers, that you can fully go back on. So the fact that you guys have, 1/3 of your sort of business model is around the automation piece, do you often find that this is the biggest blocker for you guys in terms of getting clients over the line? Because, like you say, AI automation, it is now in the mainstream, but it's new in the mainstream. It's been around for a while, but in the mainstream not so much. So is a lot of your work actually trying to educate people as opposed to anything else? Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think one of the issues we're seeing in the market, and I've actually done an article on this, is the use of AI, the language in the market. And it's almost become this big buzzword, and it's almost saturated the actual value it actually provides. A lot of tech and a lot of service providers are now saying that AI powered by AI, AI infused, all the AI terminologies. And unfortunately, it's more of a marketing trait than actual product and actual service. So we do get a lot of skeptics that when we do speak to customers, can we see your AI? Can we see your AI logic? Now, one thing we do is, we've integrated quite a lot of our automation logic calls upon AI to do some enrichment, to do some summarization. What we don't use AI to do is do the end-to-end workflow of what a traditional cybersecurity firm would do, because that'd be foolish. If you're letting machine intelligence to go and do everything and threat protect end to end, that's not going to work for anybody. How we use AI and how we demonstrate AI is a lot of our AI is actually used more in the back office. A lot of our customers don't actually see the way we leverage AI. So I'll give you an example. We have within Sentinel, it uses something called custo query language, which is an analytical rule code base. And that's how we define the logic in which when a rule, sorry, when an event, when a data connector ingests some events into Sentinel, it applies some logic, kind of like a if this then that type thing.
Okay.
That if this then that is actually all developed by KQL. And these KQL blocks are maintained, and they have to be maintained. We update KQL quite regularly. We need to ensure that these rules are always optimized. These rules are always tuned. And how we use AI is we do a synchronization between the Microsoft Content Hub rules and our rules. We want to make sure that we're up to date with what Microsoft are updating. We want to make sure that we're up to date. But as I mentioned earlier, we've got our own KQL rule language. We've got our own KQL queries, and we've got our own custom logic that we've developed. What we don't want to do is when we synchronize that data, we don't want to overwrite all the good work that we've done. So we use AI as an example of taking what Microsoft have got. We've got our own KQL, and it does a query and it merges based on what we want to take from Microsoft's KQL and leveraging ours. Now, what this does and what this means is that we've managed to increase our efficiency by removing humans from doing that type of work. And it's about 2 weeks worth of effort a month. We've removed that. So that means that that person or that team that was doing that once upon a time can now focus on customer intelligence and customer threats, right? So we've got lots of workflows like that where we leverage AI. Another example is we use AI summarization. So we take threat intelligence feeds and threat signals from lots of different sources. One of them is an incredible partner of ours called Recorded Future. You might have come across them.
Yeah.
Now, Recorded Future are market leaders in their threat intelligence feed capability. Now, we've managed to API integrate into the Recorded Future API for all of the events that come through. Now, we query that API for every event, literally for every event for our customers. But we use AI to summarize that. So we take the IOC data, we then ingest it into Sentinel, but we use AI to summarize that and then present that summarization to our customers. And our customers see that in the enriched Jira incident tickets that we create. And they get summarization of everything we found. So if we found some data in, say, an endpoint, maybe it's Defender, we found something in, we found some malicious IP activity, we've queried that against the IOC database within Recorded Future. We might have used other IOC database feeds and other TI feeds to then bring that all in. What we're not going to do is present 5 or 6 different lines of summary of data and facts to the customer because they won't understand that. So we summarize that and we use AI to summarize that logic and then present that to the customer. So one more example is that we use AI for decision logic. So should I go down this route or should I go down this route? Let me use some AI to understand what would be the best workflow or the best SOP that's automated to remediate or to investigate this particular event that we've triggered. So a lot of this the customer doesn't see. And they don't need to see it. For us, we're using AI and automation. I mean, we're an automation-led business, but AI is what we use to enrich, to help investigate, and to help collate and summarize. And as I mentioned, we use continuous improvement initiatives using AI to fine-tune our rules and to make sure we're using the best optimal KQL code in this instance for our customers, so that we trigger events in the most efficient manner, in the most efficient way, using up-to-date code base. That's the stuff that we present to customers. I mean, 9 times out of 10, customers don't really understand it but they see the outcome, they can see the result, and that's the bit we really want to demonstrate as a value. So in a long-winded way, I think AI unfortunately has been used in anger, in vain, if you will, in the marketing of cybersecurity products, and unfortunately we are tarnished with that brush. So we have a lot of skeptics that we have when we do onboard and when we do speak to customers in sort of pre-sales activities. But I'm quite a firm believer of we'll show you, we'll show it to you. This is what we do. This is how we use it, and we have workflows we can demonstrate. We've got really good demonstrations that can showcase some of those examples I just mentioned, and then that pretty much resolves any skeptics that we've got. But yeah, it's something that we're building AI into our workflows a lot more. We've actually got a project right now as we speak where our customers are able to engage with our virtual SOC analyst, which is pretty much an agent AI. And
Nice.
by speaking to this SOC analyst, they'll be able to get, real communication, real kind of emails to and thrown via Jira. And you are talking to an AI vehicle. That doesn't mean that there's no humans involved. Humans are actually watching and they're involved in that process. And should a customer want to speak to anybody, they can pick up the phone
Yeah.
or communicate and collaborate. But AI, in our case, is doing all the heavy lifting where we can then focus our people on actual threat hunting and threat investigation. That's really pertinent for our customers.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's everyone thinks that AI is taking over, and it's an instead of rather than an as well as. And I think that's key here. Is what it needs to get across is like we're working in conjunction with AI. Like you say, a lot of the tasks that can be, like you say, automated, it means that we're just moving the resource into a better placed position, which is just it's better business sense. It means that we're moving forward as with not just business, but with human development. Look at the 100-meter world record times; they get faster and faster and faster and faster.
Mhm.
And this is just AI impacting the business world. We're getting faster and more efficient. Um, One thing that I just wanted to ask you is like I did a podcast yesterday, and a point that was raised was essentially I said like okay, so if we are putting Gen AI into a security posture, is there not a bit of danger involved with that? And the first line of his answer was, are we not being dangerous by not putting it in there? And it silenced me a little bit because I was like, well, yeah, I suppose so, because as we speak, this will probably get released next month, so 2025. Um, the way that the world is now, to ignore putting AI into any security posture, you're probably playing with fire because threat actors won't be prejudiced towards using it, and they will use any way, shape, or form to get into a business. So let me throw the same question at you, Javid. Like, is it dangerous to put AI into a security posture?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the previous person that responded. I mean, you'd be foolish not to leverage AI in any cyber security service platform offering. And even if you don't use, and if you're an organization, you have to leverage it, in my opinion. AI is, I mean, if you look at the threat landscape, you mentioned it earlier, the threat actors today are using the best breed of AI automation to now perform attacks. Now, as we know, state-backed threat actors and groups and individuals in the old days would be using humans and human operational teams to brute force businesses, right? And they'll be there running code, manually updating, and then running these attacks. They used automation, which helped some of that workflow. But with the use of AI now, they can pretty much run this operation 100 times quicker and 100 times more efficient without the use of even people. I mean, you can generate Trojans using GPT, right? And all of a sudden, you can have, bedroom hackers being evolved overnight where they've got no real malicious intent, no commercial intent to ransom or do anything, but it's more just I can do it and let me see what I can do, right? And that's really dangerous. You've now got varied threat actors that's coming through. And the only way you can combat that is if you're going to get lots of these attacks coming through, 0-day attacks, all these really complex attacks, and some of these sleeper attacks where they literally just sit in your environment just watching, right? You need to leverage AI to basically proactively hunt for these things constantly in real time. So the way attacks work, they don't just go through one path in an organization and kind of go down that one route. They kind of do an attack across all of the, call them open areas in which you're most vulnerable. So whether it's using a phishing attempt, whether it's trying to do a DDoS, whether it's trying to do some kind of malware attack, whatever the attacks are, these attackers are doing it in pretty much varied different forms and real time. and at a velocity that no one can manually operate. This is where AI comes in. You need to use some level of automation and AI to basically threat hunt and threat monitor and proactively go against these attacks that are coming in. And using AI, you can then start doing pattern behavior, whether it's UABA, whether it's any type of pattern that is not normal for your organization. So if a malicious IP is coming out of China all of a sudden, and you've got no employees that really go to China, pattern behavior should pick that up. And if you then see another pattern behavior that you don't really see, anomaly that you don't really see, that should be picked up. But when you connect them together, that creates an analysis of actually something malicious is going on. And if you can use AI to do that in seconds rather than hours, that's where AI comes in. So yeah, you'd be foolish, in my humble opinion, to not leverage some level of AI and automation within your platform. What we are seeing though is platforms and products out there and are leveraging AI for a lot of this stuff. So by leveraging some of the newer grade tech and the, some of the services that are on offer and some of the platforms are on offer, they are actually using AI to do a lot of this proactive hunting. So there are tools out there that has a lot of this, but you as an organization, you still need to think about your operational workflows and some of the automation you might want to introduce. So don't let the tool do all the work. You then need to consider your incident response. You've got to consider some of the operational workflows that you might want to explore how you can leverage AI and automation. But yeah, in a really short answer, yeah, you'd be absolutely foolish in today's world, in the way the landscape is evolving. We need to combat AI with AI, 100%.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Totally echo your point there, Javid. Um, Let me throw a hypothetical situation at you. Let's just say I'm the CEO of an organization. Now, I'm looking at my SOC team right now, and I'm burning a lot of money there. I've got a lot of people there. It just looks a bit clunky. I basically need to save money where I can. I come to you, Javid, and I say, like, look, I need a little bit of your help. I know that my competitors, they're all using sort of AI with their tech stacks, but I've just not got on the bandwagon yet. Talk me through like a little bit of a roadmap, what you can present to me in terms of how you can make my SOC team or my CTI team, whatever it might be.
Mhm.
How can you make my workflows a little bit more efficient for me?
Okay. So the first thing we would look at is any organization will need some kind of way of collating all of security events in a central repository. And that's what we call a SIEM. And that's what Sentinel is. So we would understand what SIEM you've got. And in our world, we would deploy Sentinel for you on your behalf. That doesn't necessarily mean that whatever tool you're using is wrong. It just means that if you don't have a SIEM in there, then we would absolutely want to deliver, a enterprise grade, a top right Gartner platform. And especially most of our customers are already in the Microsoft ecosystem, not fully, but you might already have 365. You might already have some level of SaaS or PaaS services within Microsoft. It kind of makes sense because of the interoperability of those services, and we will deploy Sentinel in your tenants. That's the first thing we'll do. We'll then look at all of the landscape, right? So you as a SOC team, how are you currently ingesting data? If you don't already have a central repository or SIEM, where is the data all coming from? So do you have cloud infrastructure? Have you got on-prem infrastructure? Do you have applications off the shelf? Do you have SaaS? Have you got bespoke internal developed applications? What we can't do is just monitor infrastructure. We've got to look at everything, right? And that's what we do. So hence why we've got a very vast array of connectors, which we call connector packs. And if we don't have a connector for you, we'll build one for you. We'll ensure that if you have a SaaS product, we want to ensure. I'll give an example: Salesforce. Salesforce is a really interesting use case. If someone gets into Salesforce maliciously, they've got the ability to exfiltrate customer data on your behalf. That's an event, and that's a couple of scenarios that we want to monitor, and we want to ensure that that gets ingested. So we will cover all of that, and we'll help that SOC or the operational team ingest all the data that's meaningful. The next thing is, okay, you're a SOC team today. We can do all of your heavy lifting right now. So what does that mean? Is that when an event happens, my automation and our automation SOC team will, as I mentioned, do all of that investigation, that enrichment investigation and remediation to some degree in an automated capacity. And the bits that we can't do that require human intelligence, that's the bit we can then pass on to that SOC team. So all of a sudden, we might want to potentially repurpose that existing SOC team. So if you're a 5 to 10 man operation in an existing organization, we could probably save you a lot of money just by repurposing those particular people to do other things that are going to be meaningful in a proactive way. Let the automation and AI and our SOC team do all the heavy lifting. So when we present this to customers, we tend to find that, especially in the SME space, they don't tend to have a dedicated SOC team. What they tend to have is an infrastructure team that is now kind of overnight evolved into becoming the NOC or SOC. So they might be just a simple cloud, not simple, but they might just be focused on infrastructure and cloud, but they've then rolled out this SIEM because their IT director or CTO has told them to do so. And all of a sudden, they're the ones that are getting up at night because there's an event that's happened. They haven't really got an underpinning IR or an incident response process. They don't really know what to do these events. They have no idea of, what a traditional SOC analyst would do when they investigate and triage. So we find that at 10 times all the time when we're talking to our customers. So what we are kind of doing by offering this service is that not only do we give them this SIEM, this central repository of their data and their events, and not only do we bring everything into the mix, we then bring in our own incident response process. We then bring in our own SOC team and our automation. We then have our own human intelligence to do all of that for them. So it's almost a plug and play SOC service with automation and AI. And then this visual pane of glass. And something I haven't even spoke about is we don't want our customers to ever log on to Sentinel or do any any heavy lifting or any tweaking. There's no need for it. That's why we're there. We feed and water their environment. We continuously improve it. We continuously optimize it. But at the same time, the customers do want to see metrics. So we built our own proprietary portal that every customer has access to, where they can see all this value metrics and these KPIs to understand where a particular event is, how is it aligned into the MITRE ATT&CK framework, where is it in terms of automation, how much automation has been applied to each event that's been picked up, and how many has been picked up by manual people and human intelligence from our side. And they can see all of that in a single pane of glass. So quite frankly, my ultimate goal here and our ultimate goal as a business is we want to ensure that you're not spending unnecessary money. You don't need to go invest on people because we've done all that heavy lifting and we'll do all that heavy lifting for you. Quite frankly, you can sleep at night because you've got this peace of mind that you've got world-class operation teams and processes and automation and AI doing all of the heavy lifting when it comes to cybersecurity and protection. Therefore, your team, if it's an infrastructure team or if it's a platform team or a product team, they can focus on building the business or protecting other infrastructure or develop the infrastructure stack. Let us do all the heavy lifting. So it's an interesting question. It really depends on the maturity of where the customer is, whether they've already invested in a SOC team, whether they don't, and whether they're interested on doing so. We do a business case analysis on this. We actually show them that actually you can save a ton of money by leveraging us. We pay for ourselves within a couple of months, quite frankly. You genuinely don't need to go and invest in any in duplicate roles that we provide. So hopefully that answers the question.
Of course it does. And whilst it sounds amazing, you're also putting me out of a job as a recruiter as well, Javid. So but no, it sounds absolutely fantastic, mate. Cool. And that's pretty much brought us to a time. So if anybody has any questions for Javid or would like to learn more about CloudGuard AI, I'll be sure to put all the information down below. But once again, Javid, thank you very much for coming on the Security Space podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.